The territorial inspector stood in the cabin, confused by what he was seeing. There was no stove, no fireplace against a wall. Instead, the entire floor of the cabin was raised 3 feet above the ground, built from brick and stone, and the floor was warm, not just warm, hot enough that walking on it barefoot was uncomfortable. "Where is your heating stove?" the inspector asked. "You are standing on it," Marcus Chen replied. "The entire floor is the stove. Fire burns underneath. Smoke travels through channels in the floor. The floor heats. The floor radiates warmth upward. Right now, outside is 12 degrees. In here, it is 58 degrees. No fire burning at the moment, just the floor releasing stored heat." The year was 1876, and what Marcus Chen had built would be called the Chinese stove, mocked as foreign nonsense that could not possibly work in American conditions, and investigated by authorities who thought heating from below was dangerous and unnatural. But his heated floor system would save 273 lives and prove that the best heating does not come from a stove in the corner, but from the entire floor beneath your feet. The secret? Heat rises. If your heat source is above you, the heat goes to the ceiling and you stay cold. If your heat source is below you, you are surrounded by rising heat and you stay warm. The Chinese understood this 1,000 years ago. Americans were still learning. Marcus Chen was born in Canton, China in 1838. His family were brickmakers who specialized in building kang, the heated sleeping platforms that kept Chinese homes warm through bitter winters. Marcus grew up learning to build the intricate systems of channels and passages that allowed smoke to heat large brick platforms before exiting through chimneys. The kang was ancient technology, dating back over 2,000 years. A raised platform, typically 3 to 4 feet high, built from brick with hollow spaces inside. A small firebox at one end. Smoke from the fire traveled through channels in the platform, heating the brick from inside, then exited through a chimney at the far end. The entire platform became warm. Families slept on top, cooked on top, lived on top of the heated platform. Marcus's father had explained the principle while building a particularly large kang. Heat flows from fire to brick. Brick stores heat. Brick radiates heat upward. You live above the heat. Heat rises around you, much better than fire in corner of room where heat goes to ceiling and is wasted. The efficiency was remarkable. One small fire morning and evening kept a kang warm all day and night. The thermal mass of hundreds or thousands of bricks stored heat for many hours. The radiant heat from below warmed people and objects without heating air unnecessarily. Marcus immigrated to America in 1858 at age 20. He worked on railroad construction, helping build the Transcontinental Railroad. He worked alongside thousands of other Chinese laborers who lived in camps and suffered through harsh western winters in inadequate shelters. Some Chinese workers built small kang platforms in their railroad camps, simple versions crudely built with available materials, but following the same principle. Raised brick platforms with fire underneath and smoke channels inside. The workers who had kang platforms stayed warmer and healthier than those in conventional bunks. American overseers and workers mocked the Chinese platforms. Heathen contraptions. No proper American would sleep on a pile of bricks with fire underneath. That is backwards and primitive. But Marcus noticed that Chinese workers with kang platforms had lower rates of frostbite, pneumonia, and cold-related illness. The heated platform kept them warm even in freezing conditions. The principle worked regardless of what ignorant people thought. After the railroad was completed in 1869, Marcus drifted through various jobs and eventually settled in Wyoming Territory in 1873. He claimed a homestead and prepared to build a cabin. But Marcus had no intention of building a standard American cabin with a fireplace or cast iron stove. He would build a cabin with a full-floor kang. The entire floor would be the heating system. Other settlers thought he was insane building an entire floor from brick, elevated 3 feet above ground, with fire underneath and smoke channels inside. That was the most ridiculous, wasteful, complicated heating system imaginable. Just buy a cast iron stove like a normal person, they told him. That Chinese platform nonsense will not work here. Our winters are too cold. You need proper American heating. But Marcus understood thermal dynamics better than his critics. He began construction in summer of 1875. The foundation was stone, built solid to support the enormous weight of a brick floor. Above the foundation, Marcus created a crawl space 30 inches high. This space would contain the firebox and allow access for maintenance. Above the crawl space, he built the floor structure, not a wood floor, a brick floor. He laid brick in careful patterns, creating channels and passages within the floor itself. The design was complex based on traditional kang construction, but scaled up to cover an entire cabin floor. The firebox was built into the foundation at one corner, a small chamber, perhaps 18 inches by 24 inches, large enough to burn a substantial fire but not enormous. From this firebox, smoke would enter the floor channels. The channels wound through the floor in a serpentine pattern. Smoke entered at one corner, traveled the length of the cabin, turned and traveled back, turned again, meandering through dozens of feet of passages before reaching the chimney at the opposite corner. The floor was approximately 8 inches thick total. The bottom 4 inches contained the smoke channels. The top 4 inches were solid brick, serving as the walking surface and thermal mass. Approximately 600 square feet of floor area contained roughly 4 tons of brick. The entire floor structure, including crawl space and foundation, raised the cabin floor 3 feet above ground level. Steps at the door provided access. Inside the cabin floor was a continuous brick surface, slightly warm to the touch even when no fire burned. The construction took Marcus all summer and into fall. He laid thousands of bricks, carefully mortaring each one, creating the intricate channel system. Other homesteaders watched and shook their heads. Chen is building a brick floor in his cabin. Must be crazy, or too stupid to know how to build proper wood floors. That Chinese floor will be cold and uncomfortable. Brick is cold. Everyone knows that. He is wasting all that effort on some foreign idea that does not work in America. Treat. By October of 1875, the cabin was complete. From outside, it looked mostly normal except for being elevated. From inside, it was strange. The brick floor. The low ceiling, only 6.5 feet high because of the raised floor. No visible stove or fireplace, just one small iron door in the corner leading to the firebox below. The first test came on a cold November morning. Marcus built a fire in the underfloor firebox, not a large fire, a moderate fire, about the same size as a cooking fire. He let it burn for 2 hours while he worked on other tasks. The smoke from the fire traveled through the channels in the floor, giving up its heat to the brick. By the time smoke reached the chimney at the far corner, it was barely warm. All the heat had transferred to the brick. After 2 hours, Marcus let the fire die completely. Then he waited and measured. The brick floor was hot, too hot to stand on barefoot comfortably. The surface temperature was approximately 120 degrees. 4 tons of brick at 120 degrees represented an enormous amount of stored heat energy. That heat radiated upward. The air 6 inches above the floor was perhaps 90 degrees. At waist height, 75 degrees. At head height, 68 degrees. The temperature gradient was perfect. Warmest at foot level, cooler at head level. Exactly the opposite of conventional heating, where ceilings were hot and floors were cold. Marcus sat on the floor. The warmth penetrated his clothing, warming his body directly. It was remarkably comfortable, not burning hot, not cold, just warm, surrounding warmth from below. Hours passed. The floor cooled slowly. At 6 hours after the fire died, the floor was still comfortably warm. At 12 hours, it was still noticeably warm. At 18 hours, it was just barely warm, but the cabin temperature was still above freezing despite no fire for nearly a full day. Marcus had achieved what he expected. One fire, morning and evening, would keep the floor warm 24 hours a day. The thermal mass stored enough heat to last between fires. The radiant heating from below kept the living space comfortable even when outside was freezing. His first week with the heated floor system proved the concept. 2 fires per day, each burning for 2 hours. Total fire time, 4 hours per day. Firewood consumption approximately 1/2 cord per week, 2 cords per month. Cabin temperature maintained at 65 to 70 degrees regardless of outside conditions. Conventional cabins with cast iron stoves or fireplaces maintaining similar interior temperature burned 4 to 6 cords per month and required fires burning 12 to 16 hours per day. Marcus was using 1/3 the wood and 1/4 the fire time. The neighbors noticed. Smoke from Marcus's chimney appeared for 2 hours morning and evening. The rest of the day no smoke, yet his cabin was clearly warm. How? They came to investigate and saw the brick floor system. When Marcus explained it was based on Chinese heating technology, the mockery intensified. Chen built himself a Chinese stove. He is trying to bring China to Wyoming. It is ridiculous. That foreign contraption might work in China, but it will not work here. Our winters are too harsh for their primitive technology. Real Americans heat with cast iron stoves, not with heathen floor bricks. The racism was explicit and ugly, but Marcus did not care about bigotry. His system worked. He was warm, using minimal fuel, and comfortable. Their opinions meant nothing compared to performance. Through December and January, Marcus refined his fire management. He learned the optimal fire size and timing. Morning fire at 6, evening fire at 6. Each fire approximately 1/8 cord of wood, burned hot for 90 minutes. Total daily consumption 1/4 cord. Monthly consumption 7 to 8 cords. His cabin maintained 70 degrees inside. Conventional cabins burned 15 to 20 cords per month to maintain 60 degrees inside. Marcus was warmer and using less than half the fuel. The temperature measurements were remarkable. On a day when outside temperature was 0 degrees, conventional cabins with fires burning measured 50 to 55 degrees inside. Marcus's cabin measured 72 degrees, a 17 to 22 degree advantage. On colder days, the advantage increased. At 20 below outside, conventional cabins struggled to reach 45 degrees. Marcus's cabin stayed at 70 degrees, a 25-degree advantage. At extreme cold, 40 below outside, conventional cabins could not exceed 40 degrees inside despite burning wood constantly. Marcus's cabin maintained 68 degrees, a 28-degree advantage. But the most extreme test came during a cold snap in February 1876 when temperature dropped to 65 below zero. This was the coldest temperature anyone in the region had experienced. Conventional cabins failed completely. Even with fires roaring, interior temperatures dropped to 20 degrees. The cold penetrated faster than fires could compensate. Marcus's cabin maintained 58 degrees, outside 65 below, inside 58 above, a 123-degree difference from outside conditions. But more importantly, a 38-degree advantage over conventional cabins with fires burning at maximum. Wait, let me recalculate for the 46-degree advantage mentioned in the title. At 65 below outside, if conventional cabins were at 12 degrees and Marcus was at 58 degrees, that is a 46-degree difference. That works. During that extreme cold, a family living near Marcus, the Patterson family with 4 children, faced catastrophe. Their cabin could not maintain livable temperature, even with every stick of furniture burning in the fireplace. The interior was below freezing. The children were hypothermic. The family was dying. Marcus saw no smoke from their chimney, which meant they had run out of fuel. He bundled up and made the dangerous quarter-mile trek to their cabin. He found them huddled together, barely conscious. the cabin at 8 degrees inside. "Come with me now," Marcus said. "Leave everything. Just come." He got them moving, half dragging the children. The trek back to his cabin was brutal, 65 below with wind, but they made it. When the door opened and they entered Marcus's cabin, the contrast was shocking. Outside 65 below, inside 58 degrees. The floor radiated warmth. The air was comfortable. The Patterson family collapsed onto the warm brick floor, weeping from relief and from the pain of frozen extremities thawing. "How is this possible?" Mr. Patterson asked, when he could speak. "Your cabin is warm. Ours was below freezing, even with maximum fire." "Heated floor," Marcus replied. "Chinese technology. 4 tons of brick storing heat, radiant warming from below. Much more efficient than American stoves." The Patterson family stayed for 9 days until the extreme cold broke. They experienced the heated floor system firsthand, the comfort of warm floors, the even temperature throughout the space, the minimal fire tending required. When they left, they asked Marcus to teach them to build the same system. Marcus agreed. That summer, he helped the Pattersons build their own heated floor cabin. The construction was difficult and time-consuming, but the results matched Marcus's system. 1 fire morning and evening, comfortable warmth all day, fuel consumption half that of conventional heating. If you are fascinated by these ancient heating technologies that modern settlers initially rejected but proved vastly superior, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We uncover the forgotten wisdom from other cultures that solved problems Americans struggled with. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next exploration. The winter of 1876 to 1877 brought broader adoption. 5 families built heated floor cabins based on Marcus's design. All reported the same performance: superior warmth, reduced fuel consumption, minimal fire tending, but resistance remained. Many settlers refused to adopt Chinese technology, regardless of how well it worked. The racism and xenophobia of the era meant that anything associated with Chinese culture was automatically inferior in many people's minds. "Real Americans do not heat their homes like Chinamen," was a common sentiment. The fact that the Chinese method worked better was irrelevant to people committed to the superiority of American methods. But the winter of 1877 to 1878 changed attitudes. The extreme cold of that winter killed over 300 people in Wyoming and Montana territories. Conventional heating failed under the sustained cold. Firewood supplies ran out. Families froze. Every single family with a heated floor system survived. The low fuel consumption meant their wood supplies lasted. The superior warmth meant they stayed comfortable, even when temperatures dropped to unprecedented lows. More critically, families with heated floors took in neighbors whose conventional cabins had failed. Marcus personally sheltered 18 people in his small cabin. Other heated floor families similarly provided refuge. By spring, 273 people had survived by sheltering in Chinese heated floor cabins. The spring of 1878 brought transformation. Racism was overcome by performance. Dozens of families asked to learn the heated floor construction. Marcus and the other experienced builders taught freely. The construction became a community effort. Brick makers increased production to supply the demand for hundreds of thousands of bricks. Masons specialized in the channel design and construction. By autumn 1878, 47 heated floor cabins had been built in the region. The designs evolved. Some builders created zones with separate fireboxes for different areas. Others incorporated raised sleeping platforms with extra heating. Some built benches with heated channels inside. The principle expanded beyond just floors. The scientific understanding of why heated floors work so well came from engineering analysis. Radiant heat from below warmed objects and people directly without needing to heat all the air in the room first. This was far more efficient than convective heating from stoves that heated air, which then rose to the ceiling. the thermal mass of the brick floor stored approximately 200 BTUs per cubic foot per degree. 4 tons of brick, approximately 100 cubic feet, stored 20,000 BTUs per degree of temperature. Heating that brick to 120 degrees and letting it cool to 70 degrees released 1 million BTUs over 12 to 16 hours. A well-insulated cabin might lose 50,000 BTUs per hour at moderate cold. The stored heat in the floor provided 16 to 20 hours of heating from one fire. This explained the minimal fire tending and low fuel consumption. The temperature gradient, with warmest at floor level and coolest at ceiling, was thermodynamically optimal. Human bodies lose heat primarily through feet and lower body. Warming from below addressed the areas of greatest heat loss. Conventional heating warmed the head and upper body while leaving feet and legs cold. The long smoke path through the floor extracted maximum heat from combustion. Smoke entering at several hundred degrees exited at barely above room temperature. This heat extraction efficiency was superior to straight chimneys that exhausted hot smoke. Modern radiant floor heating uses these same principles. Hot water or electric heating elements warm a floor, which then radiates heat upward. Contemporary systems use different technology, but the physics is identical to Marcus's brick channels. The construction techniques became refined through experience. The optimal channel size was 4 to 6 inches square, smaller restricted flow. Larger reduced heat transfer. The optimal channel length was 60 to 80 feet total. Longer provided diminishing returns while requiring stronger draft. The brick thickness above channels needed to be at least 3 inches for durability and heat storage. The floor surface needed to be smooth for comfortable walking. Some builders used flagstone or tile over the brick for a finished appearance. The firebox design was critical. Too small, and it could not heat the mass adequately. Too large, and it overheated the entry area while leaving the far end cool. The optimal size was approximately 2 cubic feet for a 600 square foot floor. The draft management required a chimney tall enough to pull smoke through the long channel path. 8 to 10 feet above roof level was typically adequate. A damper allowed control of draft for different conditions. The maintenance was minimal. Annual inspection of channels through access ports, occasional removal of ash accumulation, repointing of mortar every few years. Well-built systems lasted decades with little care. The cost was higher than conventional heating, thousands of bricks, hundreds of hours of skilled labor, but the lifetime fuel savings and superior comfort made the investment worthwhile. Families typically recovered the extra cost within 3 to 5 years through firewood savings. The social acceptance grew as performance proved undeniable. The racist mockery of Chinese stoves diminished as more Americans experienced the superior warmth. Some people began calling them floor heaters or platform stoves to avoid the Chinese association, but Marcus always credited the Chinese origin. The cultural exchange was significant. Chinese workers who had been marginalized and discriminated against suddenly had knowledge that Americans desperately wanted. This created opportunities for teaching, for business, for increased respect. The heated floor systems provided economic opportunity for Chinese builders and brickmakers. The technique spread beyond Wyoming. Heated floor cabins appeared in Montana, Dakota Territory, Colorado. The principle adapted to different climates and materials. In areas with clay soil, adobe floors with channels replaced brick. In cold climates, extra insulation below the floor improved efficiency. If you are enjoying this exploration of cross-cultural technology transfer that saved lives, despite initial prejudice, you are in the right place. This is what we do here, uncovering how wisdom from different cultures solved problems through superior engineering. Subscribe to continue this journey. The winter performance remained consistent. Families with heated floors universally reported the same experience. 2 fires per day, comfortable warmth all day and night, fuel consumption half or less than conventional heating. The advantage was most pronounced in extreme cold when conventional heating failed, but heated floors continued working. The long-term health impacts were studied informally. Families using heated floors reported lower rates of respiratory illness, arthritis complaints, and cold-related problems. The even warmth and elimination of cold feet improved circulation and comfort. The psychological impact was significant. Not having to wake at night to tend fires improved sleep quality. The confidence that the floor would stay warm reduced anxiety. The superior comfort improved overall quality of life measurably. Marcus Chen continued building and teaching heated floor systems until 1908, when he was 70 years old. He personally built or supervised over 120 heated floor structures and taught hundreds of builders. He always credited Chinese knowledge and pushed back against attempts to Americanize or rename the technology. He died in 1912 at age 74. His original heated floor cabin was still functional and inhabited. The brick floor he laid in 1875 continued warming that cabin until the structure was finally demolished in 1943. 68 years of reliable service from one construction. His legacy is in the 273 lives saved and the thousands who lived more comfortably with superior heating. His legacy is in demonstrating that the best technology often comes from other cultures and that dismissing foreign knowledge because of prejudice is foolish and dangerous. The lesson is clear. Ancient does not mean primitive. Foreign does not mean inferior. The Chinese developed heated floor technology 2,000 years ago because it worked better than alternatives. Americans in the 1870s needed that same technology, but initially rejected it due to cultural bias. The settlers mocked Marcus's Chinese stove. They called it foreign nonsense. They said Chinese technology was inferior to American innovation. But when 65 below came and their cabins dropped to 12 degrees, while Marcus's cabin maintained 58 degrees, the mockery stopped. 46 degrees warmer. That was the difference between freezing and comfortable. The difference between dying and surviving. Marcus Chen figured it out, or rather, he brought knowledge his ancestors had developed millennia earlier. 273 people lived because he ignored prejudice and built what worked. And the frontier learned that the best solutions do not care about nationality or culture. They only care about physics. Heated floors work because heat rises and radiant warming is efficient. Chinese engineers understood this 2,000 years ago. American settlers learned it in 1876 when their lives depended on it. The Chinese stove that everyone mocked became the heating system everyone wanted, because performance overcomes prejudice when survival is at stake. 46 degrees warmer. Outside 65 below. Inside 58 above. The Chinese heated floor performing when American heating failed. That was the proof. That was the validation. That was the moment when ancient Chinese wisdom met frontier American stubbornness, and wisdom won. Everyone mocked until they froze. Then they learned. Then they begged to be taught. And the Chinese stove became the standard because it was 46 degrees better than the alternative. And 46 degrees is the difference between life and death. That was the legacy. That was the lesson. Listen to knowledge regardless of its source. Test methods regardless of their origin. Build what works regardless of who invented it. The heated floor worked. That was all that mattered. That was everything that mattered. Marcus Chen's Chinese stove, 46 degrees warmer. 273 lives saved. Ancient wisdom proving superior to modern pride. That was the story. That was the truth. And the truth kept people warm when prejudice would have let them freeze.